Welcome to Politics Nation. I'm Al Sharpton, live from Washington, D.C. Tonight's lead, Mitt Romney spoke at the NAACP convention. But who was he really speaking to? Governor Romney made a series of statements that seemed designed to win over the conservative base by antagonizing the audience inside the room. It started with his unnecessary use of the term Obamacare, to the attacks on the president's health care law.
So to do that, I'm going to eliminate every non-essential, expensive program I can find. That includes Obamacare, and I'm going to work to reform and save.
Now, here's how that insult played inside the room, in the crowd.
Non-essential, expensive program I can find. That includes Obamacare, and I'm going to work to reform and save.
Wrong service.
There was a survey of the Chamber of Commerce.
Not Obamacare.
They carried out a survey of,
Don't say that again.
of their members, about 1,500 surveys.
He said the wrong thing now.
And
Romney also attacked the president on jobs and claimed he's the candidate to help the African-American community.
the president will say he's going to do those things, but he has not, he will not, he cannot. And his last 4 years in the White House prove it definitively. If you want a president who will make things better in the African-American community, you are looking at him. You take a look.
Looking at him? Really? How? By lowering taxes on the rich and gutting the safety net? The truth is, Romney's economic plan would raise taxes on 2.2 million black families. And he supports voter ID laws that disproportionately affect black voters. In fact, 25% of African-American voters do not have voter IDs on this issue. Romney's views are simply awful, and he showed in December.
We don't want people voting multiple times, and you can get a photo ID free from your state, get it at the time you register to vote. And for people who don't have photo IDs, we could actually provide it at the voting place. People could come in, give their name, and give them a photo ID.
Now, when Mr. Romney first said he was going to the NAACP, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't attack him on the show or anywhere else. George Bush didn't go before the NAACP or any civil rights groups. Neither did Bob Dole, for that matter. So I said, maybe this is a step in the right direction. Maybe he wants to show more sensitivity. He is a guy that has a good appearance, has a good family look. But when he went today and purposely used Obamacare, which he knows is offensive, he knows it's a red flag, when he goes in representing voter ID, which he knows disenfranchises people, I was clear that he was using the audience as a backboard to score with the right ring, rather than try a three-pointer to move the country toward trying to come together and have a civil conversation that would lead to progress. Joining me now is Missouri Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, and MSNBC political analyst Karen Finney, former communications director for the Democratic National Committee. Thank you both for being here.
Good to be with you.
Thanks, Reverend.
Chairman Cleaver, let me start with you. Why did Romney make this speech today? You hear my feelings. What do you feel?
Well, I don't know whether there were strategic moves that dictated that this speech be made to the NAACP and that he would then offer some red meat to the base. I'm not sure. I would choose to believe that he legitimately wanted to go to the NAACP. I think that all presidential candidates ought to do that, even Republicans who are not generally going to receive a great deal of African-American support for a variety of reasons we don't have time to go into on the show. But I do think that his advisors, even if he was serious, even if it was genuine, his advisors all should be fired today for allowing him to speak to the NAACP and then attack Obamacare or Romneycare, however you want to you want to put it, because you know that audience is not going to embrace that. And so I would hate to be cynical to the point where I believe that he wanted the booing to take place. I hope that that's not true. But for him to have come there and then talked about President Obama to a crowd where probably Obama received 97% of those votes from that room doesn't make sense.
Well, I think, Karen, that Mr. Romney said after the speech that he expected to be booed. Yeah. So if you went in expecting to be booed, why would you then antagonize that crowd unless you were trying to make sure that that was the case? Sure. That's one. And second of all, he doesn't want to talk about, when people talk about Romney care, that's offensive. So, I mean, it's not like he didn't know Obamacare was there.
Oh, sure.
And not that he hasn't taken positions. I thought for sure he'd address voter ID today, since he has in the past acted like it was nothing. It's something the Attorney General has brought up at all of our conventions. It's something we're dealing with. Didn't even touch it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's clear that the goal here, the audience here was, Texas, was donors, was independent voters. It was not about the people in the room, because think about what George Bush did when he was a candidate back in 2000. He talked about the soft bigotry of low expectations and leave no child left behind. Even if you disagree, the point is he tried to come with an idea. He tried to come with something. John McCain, when he went last cycle, he acknowledged the history of having the first African-American candidate. Instead, Romney didn't do any of those kinds of things. Instead, he gratuitously, I think, frankly, attacked, he called him, my opponent a couple of times, in addition to going after Obamacare. So it was very intentional. The other thing he did that I really find hypocritical, he was perfectly happy to invoke his father, who does have an impressive record when it comes to an issue like this. But he sure runs away from his father's record when it comes to transparency and releasing his tax records. This is major hypocrisy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, he also seems to run away from his father in terms of his father showing courage in terms of marching with civil rights and standing up for civil rights issues. I believe his mother met Dr. King. You'd have to ask yourself, is Mitt Romney shown the same kind of outreach and the same kind of risk to go beyond the boundaries that his party has in trying to say to all Americans, African Americans, Latinos, and others, that, hey, I'm willing to help move the country forward?
Well, assuming that he was genuine in showing up today, I would have to say that he walked into a room and used this opportunity, this great opportunity, to deal with issues important to African Americans, and then failed. He flunked. He received an F-. Now, I think one of the things that he may be confused about is that you can get a good grade for showing up. You don't. I think it was good that he did show up, but in terms of having the content in that speech that would have any value to the African American community, he didn't have it. And what he said to the African American community, either unintentionally or ignorantly or intentionally, was, look, we have a wide chasm that exists between you and me. Let's keep it that way. And if that's what he wanted to leave with, then he got his wish. And I think it further polarizes the country racially.
Now, Karen, maybe he just doesn't understand certain audiences or certain feelings in different parts of the political spectrum of any race. And when you look at his background, Washington Post story today talked about the lack of diversity when he was at Bain, and I'm quoting them. During his race for the Senate in 1994, Romney faces questions about diversity in his company, Bain Capital, which did not have any black employees. Yeah. Then, as governor, he ended the Office of Affirmative Action, proposed a $125 fee to file discrimination complaints.
Right.
Got to pay $125 just to file a discrimination fee. And he never met with the local Massachusetts NAACP. So, I mean, there seems to be a pattern here of either insensitivity or of lack of concern.
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, as the congressman said, somebody should get fired. Right, because, just from a political perspective, somebody should have said, here's what you're going to have to say. Here are some ideas that we could put on the table. But here's the one thing I want to get out. At the end, he tried to connect to the audience on values and talked about how, he's always believed that everyone is a child of God. The Mormon church is becoming increasingly diverse, so you would think he understands that just like America, you've got to talk to everybody. Imagine if he would have said, everyone is a child of God, and both the president and I are sons of America. That would have had an impact in that room, to acknowledge, to go beyond this, the birtherism, and to try to acknowledge, look, we have very different visions. Here's my vision, rather than attacking the president, and acknowledging, as he tried to, that we're children of God.
But if you were playing to those that are adverse to him acting as though that's the case, then you wouldn't use that line.
And he didn't.
Well, Chairman Cleaver, Karen Finney, thank you both for your time tonight.
Good to be with you.
Ahead, Broadway moved to Washington today. When the curtain came up, there was Speaker Boehner and the crew voting to repeal the health care law. Again, a Tony Award-winning performance. Plus, Republicans found a solution to protect the right to vote by taking away people's right to vote. It's a growing trend, but we have a response. And Bermuda, home to the breathtaking white sand beaches and home to Mitt Romney's lost company. The questions are mounting, and they're coming from his own party. You're watching Politics Nation, live from Washington, D.C. on MSNBC.